This week on Newsnight, Florida's hemp industry reacts to a decision by Governor DeSantis to veto a bill that would have banned Delta 8 and certain other products. Newsnight starts now.
Hello, I'm Steve Mort and welcome to Newsnight, where we take a deep dive into the stories and issues that matter to Central Florida and how they shape our community. First tonight, Florida's hemp industry. Governor DeSantis recently vetoed a bipartisan bill passed by the legislature that would have added tough regulations to hemp products in the state. It would have banned certain euphoria-inducing hemp products, such as Delta 8 THC, and placed restrictions on those that remained legal. Hemp and marijuana are both cannabis plants, but hemp doesn't contain more than 0.3% THC, not enough to produce a high. Here's the rub, though. Delta 8 THC, which does give users the sensation of being high, can be manufactured from CBD, which is bountiful in hemp plants. And because hemp is not marijuana, it can be sold widely in states like Florida with few regulations. Supporters of the vetoed bill say sensible regulations are needed to govern the sale of products that health officials say could be harmful. Opponents say the bill would have burdened small businesses, damaged a lucrative industry, and simply benefited large marijuana dispensary chains. Well, Newsnight spoke this week with Sixto Samudio, the owner of a CBD store in Castleberry.
In the case of that bill, the bill passed, and it would have been detrimental for industry. It would have, for ourselves, we would most likely would end up closing the store and not being able to help many other patients and customers that come into our store and benefit from our products. In the standpoint that the product helps a lot of people for many different issues, anything from anxiety to pain to different illnesses that they have, and it would have been very detrimental to their health and their well-being. Certain things are good in the bill, like we talking about the cartoon characters and different things they cater to children or attract children. That's something that we should have more companies doing their due diligence in changing their labeling of their products. The labeling of the product also as well, be a little bit more certain of the amount of milligrams there are in the product and the dosage to the products, in order for customers to be more aware of what is it that they take in and how much are they taking of the product. I would say when it came to the Delta products, some of the stuff kind of, I would say, overstepped, because those are products that help a lot of people. When it comes to problems, one of probably I can mention a lot is, and it happens a lot with adults, is sleep. A lot of people suffer from insomnia. So a lot of the customers come in and we pair them with different products that are based with CBD and CBN. Those cannabinoids put together to help people to get the restful nights of sleep. We actually got 4 customers. 3 of them, their children suffer from seizures, and another one is an adult. They suffer from seizures as well. And they get great relief from the product. It has helped them a lot, especially for the children. One of them, the child is kind of almost living a normal life. He's able to go out and play and do different things without the parents having to worry the child having a seizure and maybe hurt himself or anything like that. So it's something that is very helpful for a lot of the parents, and they have that peace of mind.
The perspective of a Central Florida CBD retailer, speaking with Newsnight intern Emily Ching. We did reach out to the Republican State Senator Colleen Burton of Lakeland, who sponsored the bill vetoed by the governor, but we did not hear back. So let's get into the issue in depth now. Joining me in the studio this week, Joe Mario Pedersen, covers health for Central Florida Public Media. Thank you so much for coming in, Joe Mario.
Glad to be here.
Really appreciate it. Ezzy Castro, for the first time, reporter at WKMG News 6. Thanks for coming in, Ezzy.
Thanks, Steve.
Good to see you. Curtis McLeod from Spectrum News 13. Thanks for coming in, Curtis.
Always a pleasure.
Good to see you guys today. Curtis, let me start with you. Spectrum News has been following this story as well. Give us a broad overview of what this legislation would have done had it been signed by the the governor.
Yeah, Steve, so if this had, been signed into law by the governor, what this would have done, it would have cracked down on those products, those THC products that are specifically made with Delta 8, Delta 10. And it also would have said, hey, look, be mindful of the type of packaging you put on these products, because what they're trying to do here is not make it enticing for children or youth.
And he seemed to suggest he kind of favored that, products that maybe appeal to children.
Right. He said he did, but that's what this would have cracked down on. And it's all about putting those regulatory steps in place so that, you can kind of monitor and kind of like, I don't want to say streamline, but kind of put some parameters on the industry here. But as we saw, the governor saw different to not sign that bill.
I mean, we just heard from that hemp retailer, Sixto Samudio. I mean, what has Spectrum News been getting in terms of reaction?
Well, we're hearing from a lot of people say that, hey, obviously they didn't want to see this happen, and they are grateful that it was not signed into law, because just as we heard in the clip that you all spoke with, it would have greatly impacted, the business here in that particular industry. And that's one of the things that they were trying to hopefully not happen, where a lot of those individuals, small business owners, they would have been greatly impacted by this.
Yeah, let's get into this, Joe Mario. This bill would have banned Delta 8 THC products that are produced from hemp CBD, right? Critics feared that may have ensnared other CBD products that sort of don't produce a high, like Charlotte's Web, for example. And I wonder what proponents of hemp say are the health benefits of products like that.
Yeah, so I mean, as far as those benefits are concerned, how it's marketed and why consumers are so interested in them, it's supposed to relieve stress, it's supposed to relieve some pain, help sharpen focus, and probably give you a healthy night of sleep. They also claim that it can help with some more complex issues like depression, autoimmune disorders, and even epilepsy. So kind of a whole array of different things.
News 6 has also been following this story, Ezzy. The governor cited the potential economic impact of signing that hemp bill. What does the governor want to see happen going forward instead in terms of devising regulations? It's not like he doesn't want regulations, right?
Well, I want to say, I think you guys agree that, the governor, we didn't think he was going to take this route, but he sure did.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing here is, he said that this bill would inflict small businesses and retail businesses across the state, leaving hundreds without jobs, as we heard from the clip that you had earlier. So these businesses really did urge the governor to veto this bill. And so the hemp business is an industry that has ranked billions of dollars. So imagine taking that away from the state of Florida. So I think that this would definitely impact the economy. And he suggested that the Florida legislature would focus more on sensible regulatory framework to hemp and hemp-derived products.
Basically urging them to go back and take a second look at this, I guess. I mean, there have been alarm bells raised, though, about hemp in terms of a treatment for for a range of medical conditions. I mean, I wonder what those concerns are, particularly with products that contain those sort of psychoactive cannabinoids.
Yeah, so to make note, this is not an FDA-regulated product, right? And the FDA has actually done studies on hemp products to see, what sorts of effects come about from this. And in one study where hemp was being ingested, about 66% of those part of the study experienced adverse effects, and those effects could range from anywhere between experiencing anxiety to hallucinations, to blacking out and losing consciousness entirely. And one of the reasons why the FDA is, I guess, to borrow your words, ringing those alarm bells is marketers will use different chemicals synthesizing into this product, right, to change the color, make it more marketable. And these chemicals are household products that potentially could be harmful to those consuming them.
Interesting. Let's pivot this to the marijuana issue. Medical marijuana is already legal in Florida, but that industry is highly regulated in contrast to the hemp industry. How does obtaining medical marijuana, Joe Mario, differ from buying hemp products right now?
It's a pretty night and day comparison, right? Like for one, you don't need a license of any kind to pursue any sort of hemp CBD. Really, you just have to be 21, go to a place that sells it, and you can purchase whatever you want right over the counter, whether that's gum, lotion, vape products. As far as some of the differences there go, CBD has, I think, less than 1% of THC, which is, of course, the agent responsible for producing a high. I think it's about like 0.03%.
0.3%, that's right.
That's right. And as far as that's concerned, it's a low dosage, but you can buy as much as you want, really. There's no restriction on that.
Curtis, the governor opposes a constitutional amendment to legalize recreational marijuana.
Right.
By vetoing, this is where it gets into the politics, right? I mean, by vetoing this bill that cracks down on euphoria-inducing hemp, I mean, is he essentially helping a major competitor to the pot industry?
I mean, pretty much. It seems like that's what he's trying to do to kind of like, now, even recently, he said, hey, this is all about, just trying to regulate, putting those, kind of like what he was saying to the legislature. Hey, I'm not saying we don't do some regulations here. Go back and take a look at this. But obviously, he doesn't want, he wants to kind of make sure that, he doesn't want to see this amendment come into fruition. And also, by vetoing this bill, it does kind of help one of their main competitors stay alive.
No kidding. I mean, does it kind of take the steam out of that effort to pass a constitutional amendment, do you think?
I think he definitely had a plan here, because
Absolutely
he
right.
wants to, he says the hemp industry, he thinks that would finance the campaign against Amendment 3. He said, okay, we'll do this so we can maybe get to this, I feel like, and again, Amendment 3 would legalize recreational marijuana for anyone 21 and older.
Right.
So just to remind folks, and I think that the point here too is a lot of people don't know that the hemp industry and the recreational marijuana industry are almost two different things.
For sure.
Yeah, they are. They
So-
are, and
and-
especially the way people perceive it too.
Correct.
It's
Yeah.
that has a lot to do with it too, and I think that it'll be very interesting to see as we inch closer to November how this goes.
Yeah.
Two distinct industries and competitors for sure, and another interesting subject to watch as we approach the November election, no doubt. Well, you can find links to the hemp bill vetoed by the governor and the Hemp Farming Act passed by Congress in 2018 on our website, wucf.org/newsnight. Okay, next tonight, the US Supreme Court this week agreed to take up a case that could have profound effects on a law in Florida, which imposes restrictions on transgender care for minors. It's a piece of legislation that already faces a very uncertain future after a federal judge struck down as unconstitutional Florida's ban on gender-affirming care for trans children. The same judge last year threw out the state's ban on Medicaid payments for gender dysphoria treatment. The DeSantis administration is appealing both rulings, but as the nation's highest court prepares to weigh in on the Tennessee law, a decision in that case could upend a variety of restrictions passed in recent years in Republican-controlled states.
The Biden administration is challenging a federal appeals court ruling allowing Tennessee's law and another in Kentucky to take effect. Tennessee and more than 20 other states have passed pieces of legislation that target medical care for transgender people. The Supreme Court will hear arguments over the Tennessee law that restricts hormone therapy and puberty blockers for transgender children. The High Court ruled in 2020 that sex discrimination laws protect gay and trans people and allowed a transgender girl to participate in girls' sports. But it's also turned away challenges to restrictions on school bathroom use for transgender students.
All right, well, let's get into this. Joe Murray, you've obviously covered this issue really closely. Let's start with that recent federal court ruling on Florida's law. What did the judge say in his ruling, and what does it cover?
Right, so that's Judge Robert Hinkle, and what he said was that this was not only unconstitutional, but also that the law unfairly discriminates against transgender people. Now, what the ruling will do is it will restore health rights back to those seeking these therapies. And as far as those rights are concerned, the way this law worked is it restricted who could give, not only who could receive the therapy, right, but the way that it controlled that was by restricting who could actually administer the therapy.
Yeah.
So like hormone replacement therapy, for example, the law said that HRT could only be provided by physicians. And traditionally, clinics relied on nursing practitioners to administer this therapy. It was the most accessible way to receive that therapy. And when they no longer had access to that, it really dried up where you could get this from. So this law, or this ruling rather, returns this back to HRT, back to clinics, right? It also allows minors to receive puberty blockers. So it returns back to a status quo, essentially.
I mean, News 6 has covered this story as well, obviously, as I mean, the courts have blocked similar pieces of legislation in other states, but I wonder what makes the ruling on Florida's law, particularly significant.
Well, I'm going to piggyback from what Joe said. I mean, I think the law blocked puberty blockers for minors.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. And it also restricted healthcare workers that can prescribe gender-affirming care to adults and only allowing physicians to provide that care. So I feel like that law stands out more here in Florida compared to maybe the other states as well. But I mean, there's just, there is a lot going on with this legislation right here, which we've been covering significantly for months and months.
Florida sort of has been at the forefront of that push in Republican states. I mean, Curtis, you guys have been getting reaction to that federal judge's ruling on Florida's law. What are you hearing?
Well, of course, we've been talking to some of these providers and providers of some of those those services to members of the transgender community, and a lot of them say, hey, they count this as a win. It has helped alleviate a lot of the stresses they've been seeing in their offices, creating backlogs and wait lists, and they've kind of seen that, okay, hey, we can operate. Kind of piggybacking off of what Joe said, this is a relief for them because they for so long were shut out. So,
but what about the DeSantis administration? What do they think?
Oh, well, we know they want to appeal right away. They don't agree with this, and we know that the governor has been very strong, opinionated about what he wants, and says he wants to protect the children of Florida. That's always been his thing. We've been to his press conferences. Anytime that's brought up, that is something that he always answers.
He talks about that a lot. What have you been hearing, Joe Mario, from those that practice this line of medicine? What do health providers tell you?
To put it very simply, they're very excited about this. I think it should be noted that any clinic that was previously providing these therapies was not forced to. They were providing these therapies because they absolutely wanted to, right? So there's a lot of excitement in the community as far as that goes. One clinic that I was speaking to, 26 Health here in Orlando, I think 4 days after Hinkle's ruling, they put out a press release that they were going to be returning to these practices, right, to HRT. And I think that was at 4 o'clock on a Friday. Within the hour, they already had calls from previous patients who told them, I haven't had treatment since you were prevented from being able to provide it to me. I'm very excited about doing this. And by this Monday, they will have provided their very first appointment again.
But also uncertainty, of course, with the U.S. Supreme Court likely to have the final say on this issue, Curtis. I mean, can we draw any conclusions, do you think, about what the justices might do, given their previous positions on sort of LGBTQ issues?
Yeah, and that's the thing. See, we're looking at those prior cases. I know one, Bostock versus Clayton County.
Yes.
We look a little bit at that to kind of glean from what might happen here and the things that happen with that particular case here. And one would say that, okay, maybe they may uphold. But the other way you look at it, we're talking about a Republican
it's a very conservative
I should say conservative Supreme Court. Let me say that, conservative Supreme Court. So based off of that, it may be unlikely. But it could go either way, though. I think we'll have to wait and see exactly kind of what may happen.
It's a very interesting Supreme Court to watch.
It will, and the thing about this too, it's not supposed to be taken up until close to the election too. So a lot going on around that stretch of time.
Another issue that's likely.
We're going to be busy in November.
Coming the fall.
Very busy, right?
No kidding. Meanwhile, we always want to hear your thoughts on the news of the week as well. Be sure to visit us on social media. We're at WUCF TV on Facebook and Instagram, and we have a new handle on X. You can find us there at NewsNight WUCF. Okay, finally tonight, the Orlando Utilities Commission says it wants to shake up the way it bills customers. OUC says it hopes to charge more for electricity at peak times. And like other utilities, it's proposing to pay customers with solar panels less for the excess energy those homes put back into the grid, a practice known as net metering. Well, I spoke with the Orlando Sentinel's Kevin Spear, who's been covering the story.
What they want to do is engage the future of energy, and that is getting away from fossil fuels and embracing renewables. And here in Florida, that generally means solar power. it's a tough road, and what they want to do is line up their billing practices to facilitate that as much as possible.
Well, so how would this work, though? How would people pay more at peak times? And what is their goal with that? Are they just aiming to change consumers' energy consumption habits?
In brief, they want to make electricity, more costly during the hottest times of the day when everybody's running their air conditioners, and less costly at night or early in the morning and so forth. They're not trying to get people to turn their air conditioners off, but they want people to think about when they use their electricity. And maybe late at night or early in the morning, they could run their dishwasher, do their laundry, charge their car, and shift their electricity usage to parts of the day when electricity is slightly less costly.
But you write about this effort to phase out fossil fuels in favor of solar, but of course at the same time, solar customers are, some of them at least, are angry with OUC and other utilities for the way that the utilities want to pay them less for the amount of energy, the excess energy that their solar panels make that goes back into the grid. Why does OUC want to pay them less?
Yeah, that feels like, to a lot of customers, like a betrayal. The utility contends that you, the homeowner, you're not paying for all of the wires and transformers and all of the infrastructure that moves electricity around. You've only got panels. So they say, the utility says that because you are not having to pay for all of the act of producing electricity, you shouldn't get paid the full price for electricity.
Well, how does the utility answer the criticism that just disincentivizes people to get solar panels to promote a type of energy generation that they themselves say they want?
They don't answer that very well. What they're trying to do today now is to offer battery storage, so programs that incentivize purchases of batteries, so that if you have solar panels on your house, you put that extra electricity in a battery and you use it during the peak time of day. But in terms of really encouraging people to put a lot of solar panels on their rooftops, not so much right now.
Kevin Spear there from the Orlando Sentinel. Okay, Joe Mario, let me come to you first on this one. Why does OUC say that now in particular is the time to be doing this?
Yes, so now is a great time to take a look at the way it does billing for individuals. So you can be aware of, what time of the days are you using really big energy products, right? Like when are you, what times are you charging your car? What times are you using the washing machine? If you have a pool, what times are you using the pool pump, right? So be aware of those ahead of time before these peak hour charges come into play, and maybe think accordingly of when to actually use those products.
I mean, Spectrum has been following this as well. You guys went to a public workshop, right, on OUC's plans. From that event, do they seem to be going down well with the public or not so much?
Not so much, Steve. I think anytime you talk about potential hike rates, people get a little nervous, especially in this day and age, in this economy. That's just one more thing they're going to have to deal with, have to pay for. Now, I know the way this is structured that some people will see potential rate increases, others may see decreases. It just kind of depends on where you fall. But overall, the people, a lot of them saying that they don't buy that they're gonna. Those who may get may see decreases or may not see any increases. They're thinking that this is going to be a rate hike overall for everybody.
I mean, specifically on solar, Ezzy. I mean, News 6 has been kind of following that fallout from the proposed net metering changes from OUC. Has there been a strong pushback from what you guys are hearing?
And definitely. I think just last week we spoke to Orlando Councilwoman Patty Sheehan, and she was very vocal about this, very upset. She argues that this significant cut would encourage more residents would not encourage them to adopt to solar energy, which is something, she's very vocal about, and she even wrote a letter to the Orlando Utility Commissioner saying that she was going to fight this and not back down. So we know that definitely from that side, we are getting some feedback.
Yeah, and she's been a big proponent of solar energy for sure.
Yes.
What do we know about how much solar energy Florida generates or is part of the portfolio, say, in comparison to other states?
Yes, Florida does not disappoint. It lives up to the Sunshine State name in this regard, right? It is the top 3 as far as producers go, falling behind California and Texas, of course.
Yes.
I think in 2023, it produced 7% or 7% came from those solar energy farms, right? And in that top 5 list, it's California, as I said before, Texas, Florida, Nevada, and North Carolina. So it's huge up there.
Solar energy is a big alternative fuel source here in Florida. Out west, oftentimes it's wind energy. It's where you can get that energy. I mean, we're talking about OUC here, Ezzy, but you've covered utilities and how they're dealing with solar in other places. What have you learned?
Well, I went to the city of Mount Dora a few months ago, and they introduced me to their community solar program, which we were talking about. I was in Lake County earlier this morning, and I actually passed by their solar panel farm. And so what they do is, this is a program where no panels are needed at your home. They're strictly using the power from the farm. But however, this is for a certain amount of residents. They were able to apply early in the year and use that. So pretty cool stuff, but it is limited. But this is something, an initiative that a city is taking steps towards solar panels and collecting that energy.
Well, it's a very interesting industry to watch, and we'll certainly keep an eye on it as we go forward and our energy needs become more pressing here in the state of Florida. Before we go, a reminder to be sure to check out more NewsNight content on our website, wucf.org/newsnight, and also on the WUCF YouTube channel at WUCF TV. That is all the time we have for this week. My thanks to Joe Mario Pedersen from Central Florida Public Media, Ezzy Castro from WKMG News 6, and Curtis McLeod from Spectrum News 13. Thank you so much for coming in, guys.
Sure thing.
Really appreciate your time today. Meanwhile, as hurricane season ramps up, we'll return next Friday at 8:30 with an encore of our recent series From Crisis to Conservation, looking at resiliency efforts in our state. Meanwhile, from all of us here at NewsNight, take care and have a great week.